All right, welcome back to the Soft Compound podcast. We have, like I was just saying, we haven't really done a video in a few weeks, but you might as well, or you might have already seen why. Brand new location.
We've been moving.
New
got
studio, got a TV behind us. So yeah, we're moving up in the world. It feels good. And yeah, we're gonna be just cranking out all the 5-city content starting now, starting with the Brazil Grand Prix race review. Man, I don't know. If you're watching this, you definitely already know. Like this was the race of the year. It was the most exciting race. If you love controversy and things like that, this is the race for you.
If you love drama,
yeah, right. So I mean, we can start with Brazil being like Interlagos. Maybe this is something that you don't know. That's the name of the track. It's because it's between
what do you mean? I'm an expert on that.
I know. I'm sorry.
We're not experts. We're American.
We're American. We're just silly Americans. But no, Interlagos is the name of the track. It's because it's in between two lakes. Interlagos makes sense. But what I was going to say is Interlagos is absolutely the GOAT as far as it comes, or as far as current F1 tracks go. It always produces a good race. Last year, you know what happened with Lewis. He went from last to first throughout the weekend. Another good point that I heard brought up throughout the weekend is it rains in November in Brazil 1 out of every 3 days. So you're basically guaranteed to have one wet session, which is good for fans, good for the excitement, especially when there's a dominant champion. Like I said, too, it's a great track, a lot of places to overtake. Really interesting track, amazing fan base in Brazil. I can go on, but just wanted to throw that out there. Interlagos is absolutely the GOAT. And that was solidified for me this weekend. I had heard a lot about it leading up to it, saying, everyone's saying, can we have all the races here, yada, yada, yada. And I definitely understand why now.
Yeah, I mean, the track is incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. We should start chronologically. Obviously, like I said, if you're here, you definitely watched the race, you know everything that happened. But we're going to start. We can start with qualifying. Qualifying for the sprint race, unfortunately. This is a sprint race weekend, so qualifying was on Friday. Kevin Magnussen on pole. First pole ever for Haas. We can start with that.
Yeah, it was
insane.
It was absolutely awesome. But I mean, talk about how it happened, right? I mean, it was kind of a backwards in on the pole, right?
So for sure, right? So I was gonna say let's set the scene a little bit. Like you said though, it was a little bit of a weird circumstance how he got the pole. So he made it into Q3 in a Haas, which is can't discredit that at all. So he's into Q3. He sets a lap in the 111s, but that was the dry time lap for most drivers, right?
Yeah.
So Kevin sets his lap. He's in the 111s, and then the rain comes. All drivers head into the pits. Kevin Magnussen has the fastest lap. The 111s are now done. It's pouring rain. No one's going to set a lap in the 111s, much less the 112s. I think Lewis, nobody even really attempted it. Lewis went out there for one lap, and I don't even think it was, I think it was more of a waste of time. Yeah. It was more of a waste of time than anything. But yeah, so with the rain and with all the circumstances, yes, Kevin Magnussen was on pole going into the sprint race. It was amazing. It was the first pole for Haas ever. Haas has never started on pole, and it was the first pole for Denmark. Denmark's never had a driver on pole in Formula One, so that was great. Absolutely great to see. And then of course we have the video of him celebrating in the garage after he's making the face at the camera. He hops on top of the car. He's pumping his fists. I'll throw it up there because I did post it, but it was awesome. It was just, I don't know, heartwarming to see, especially in a season where we've had a dominant team, a dominant champion. The past 5-6 races have really been pretty.
Well, yeah, and it's amazing to see because you don't normally see one of the midfield or lower field teams getting a pole. Yeah. I mean, you just don't see it.
Especially because it's a pole. It is the fastest lap around the track. You know what I mean? So a midfield team, a lower end team does not have the car to produce a pole lap. I think George Russell almost had pole 2 years ago at Williams or last year. I don't know. But other than that, like you said, it's super hard to set a pole lap in a bad car because there's nothing to do with race pace or race IQ or anything like that. You can't do any moves. It's just one lap. Who has the fastest time? So yeah, him being able to be on pole, it's something we never see.
Yeah. incredible. I mean, even if it was whatever, however he got there, it's incredible.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Formula One is such a top-heavy sport sometimes that it doesn't even matter how they got there. They're celebrating like they won the world championship because they did. You know what I mean? This was their world championship, and I don't mean that in a bad way at all. Like this is just huge for them, and I couldn't be happier. Well,
and that's something that as Americans we don't. You know, when I first started watching it, we didn't really understand. It was like, okay, there was. There's the top teams, and then the mid-level teams, they don't really, the midfield teams, they don't really compete, except they compete against themselves, really, because they know they're not going to make it to the top. They're not going to be top-tier teams or whatever. And it took me a while to understand that.
For sure. Because
it's really Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari at the top.
Right.
And then kind of everybody else, and everybody else is not really expected to win. And when someone wins, it was like last year when Lando was leading that race for the whole time.
Yeah.
And then he ended up not winning, but it was would have been a huge deal, obviously.
Right, exactly.
If he won, but
100%.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Anytime something unexpected happens in a season like this, I'm definitely down for it. And speaking of unexpected things, Mercedes had a 1-2. This is a huge. Mercedes fans, this was definitely your weekend. We can keep going chronologically a little bit too. So going into the sprint race, KMAG got away good, but within the first 3 laps, I believe he got overtaken by George Russell, and then George Russell ended up winning the sprint race. He was on soft compound tire, had to say it, and he was being chased down by Max.
No pun intended.
Yeah, right, exactly. I'll fix it. So Max was on the mediums. It ended up overall hurting him. This was supposed to be like a tricky strategy by Red Bull, so they would have 2 sets of soft compound tires for the race, but it ended up just totally fucking up. But yeah, so Red Bull had an off weekend in all aspects. Like I said, as you probably know if you watch the race, it's a horrible weekend for Red Bull, so Mercedes definitely had to capitalize. This was the weekend for them to have a good weekend. Yeah, Anything on Mercedes, yeah. George, Lewis?
Yeah, I mean, as a Mercedes fan, I mean, I'm more of a Lewis fan than George fan, but yeah, it was good to see them finally get through to the top, and hopefully this is going to make them, propel into next year. And, I think it's been a long time coming, right? I mean, all year they've had issues upon issues and porpoising and the whole deal. And,
yeah.
It was just hard to get their act together, and with such, when Red Bull and Ferrari in the beginning were having such huge success.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's been such a trying year for Mercedes. Like you said, from porpoising, they were probably the team that struggled the most and the longest with porpoising. And then throughout the year, just trying to find the right build, the right setup. Lewis was playing with different experimental setups for half the year. You know what I mean?
Isn't it funny, though, we haven't heard that word porpoising in about 2 to 3 months?
I was going to say, and it was the talk of
We've
Formula
never
1.
even heard the word when it was uttered every other word in the first, 10 races.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I was going to say, we couldn't stop talking about porpoising, and now porpoising is I don't know. You never hear about it anymore.
I didn't hear him say it once during the race.
And the thing is,
the last 5 races, to be honest.
The thing is, too, I don't even know if they 100% eliminated porpoising as much as this is how the new cars are driving. You know what I mean?
They eliminated talking about it. That's for sure.
100%. 100%.
There must have been a ruling that came down from.
Yeah, stop talking about this shit.
Yeah. So porpoising, we haven't heard that. And there must have been a ruling that came down from
the FIA, from the FIA.
Those guys.
The stewards, right?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. That's how much of a friggin' amateur I am. I don't even know what they call those ruling guys.
No, yeah.
Anyways,
they must have ruled that, hey, stop talking about this
ruled that the word porpoising is no longer used on the broadcast.
But yeah, I mean, getting into the race a little bit, just from George's perspective or Mercedes, it wasn't too exciting. Well, it was exciting for them for sure, but it wasn't very eventful. He got away pretty good in the race, and basically held his lead throughout pit stops and whatnot. He interchanged with Hamilton a few times, but he had a pretty clean race. He didn't put a foot wrong the whole time. And yeah, he did exactly what he needed to do. He fended off Hamilton, and in exactly the same machinery. So
yeah,
it was
I
great.
mean, of course, there was a incident in turn 1 or right down with Max and Lewis right away.
So yeah, that was lap 7 of the restart.
Lap 7. Okay, I didn't. Yeah.
No,
it was already in the beginning.
You thought it was, yeah. I mean, it was lap 7, but it was after.
Gotcha.
It was right after a restart too. So that's probably what you're thinking.
Oh, because there was a safety car right away.
100%. Yeah. For Magnussen and Ricciardo, we'll also get to that. But yeah, like I said, just speaking from Mercedes' perspective a little bit, it was just awesome. I mean, I wish I was a Mercedes fan, or I wish I liked George at all. But
You're a little bit of a Lewis fan.
Oh,
maybe.
I don't know. I like
a little bit.
I like pretty much everybody, but not really at the same time. Just depends how I wake up.
I like pretty much everybody except George.
Well, we can have a whole episode on that, but I'll give George his day. How about that? I'll lay off him for now. Apparently, I mean, as to us, this matters zero, but apparently this is the first time that God Save the King was played on the F1 podium, not shit. God Save the Queen. Wow. So, if that means something to you, great. Just wanted to throw that in there. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have on Mercedes. Like I said, pretty uneventful, but amazing weekend for
God Save the King.
God Save the King. Okay, so getting into the main event, I would say, of the podcast and of the race, are the problems at Red Bull. So if you're a Formula One fan at all, you know what happened. So I'll give a quick explanation, a quick rundown. Max obviously has everything wrapped up. He's the driver's champion. Red Bull is the constructor's champion. But Checo is still fighting for second in the driver's championship. With Leclerc. So when coming to the end of the race, it was clear that Max, so Checo was in front of Max, right? And it's clear that Max had better tires, better pace behind Checo. So over team radio, they coordinate it, and Checo lets Max through to try to knock off some points. There was a Ferrari of Leclerc and Alonso, an Alpine of Alonso in front. They were going to try to just have Max overtake those guys, or at least one of them, try to do something, right? When it became clear that he wasn't going to do anything, he wasn't even going to be able to get close to overtake Leclerc or Alonso, the Red Bull pit wall basically asked Max to give the position back to Checo just to do the switch. Checo was already in front to begin with. They asked him 3 times, and Max just didn't respond and, stayed in front until the checkered flag. So I have some quotes here just because I didn't want to get anything wrong as far as like the radio messages go. So obviously Max crosses the checkered flag, and GP, his race engineer, just asked, hey, like, Max, what happened, basically? And he said, and I quote, I already told you guys, I'll just start that over. I told you guys already last time, don't ask me to do it again. Okay, are we clear about that? I gave my reasons, and I stand by it. And then I'll say, so Checo obviously was really upset. He said, thank you for that. This is showing me who he really is. Basically, it's paraphrased. And then in a post-race interview, Checo claimed that, if Max has 2 championships, it's because of him. Obviously, Max is not in the right here. The 6th place does not mean anything to him. But there's a lot to unpack. You know what I mean? At face value, it looks really bad. For sure.
Yeah, of course. I mean, obviously we don't know the whole story, and we don't know the backstory that, there was some claim that Checo purposely crashed in Monaco.
Yeah, I was going to say,
blah, blah, blah. We don't know. We don't know what's behind that. Maybe we go back and watch that race and see what
I was going to say
really transpired.
I do have some notes on that for sure. Yeah.
I don't know. I was thinking about that today, though. I was like, we should go back and watch that race.
Right. No, yeah. So
and watch qualifying and watch the whole thing and see what exactly, happened. I'm sure people have already done that, but it's a good way to go back because we don't know. I mean, we really don't know why this happened or what. And of course it makes Max look like a total idiot, but maybe there's a lot more to it. We, of course, like with any story, there's going to be more to it, and
for sure,
we just don't know what it is.
Yeah, that's the thing, is we're never really going to know the full reason why. So I will start with this. Max openly said in a post-race interview that this was because of something that happened in the past. He did say that. And like you already touched on, this is most likely, we can make the assumption that he was referring to Checo's crash in the Monaco qualifying. Basically, obviously Checo won in Monaco, but that kept him in front. red flagged the session and basically kept it in front of Verstappen, leading for him to win. So it's funny you said we should go back and look. I saw a few videos on Twitter and actually a few pictures of like the actual data. So if you look at the crash, there's definitely a few things worth noting. In the corners leading up to the corner where he crashed, you could hear, obviously you can hear the revs on the car, right? You can hear kind of how hard they stomp on the throttle, right?
Yeah.
You hear in the corners leading up, it's pretty gradual, and then it's definitely a much sharper acceleration on the turn where he crashed, which is, obviously he screwed up in some way, but the telemetry, so the data basically, it also supports this. It shows like basically the lines going up and down on the screen. I'll try to throw it up, but you can see in the two corners previous, it's a real gradual acceleration, and then it's super sharp on the data on the corner that he crashed. So I don't know. Like I said, like you said, we're never really gonna know exactly what happened. It could have even been a thing where, Checo has a little less. He's throwing a little caution into the wind on these turns, and he's saying, "Oh, if I crash, fuck it." You know what I mean? Like he's not deliberately trying to crash on that specific turn, but maybe he's throwing the car around a little more on that lap than he usually is.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? I mean, I'm sure this isn't the first time that this has happened, but it's probably maybe one of the first times it's come out.
Yeah, 100%. So obviously, we're never going to know for certain. Dutch media, Max Verstappen is Dutch. Dutch media are reporting that Checo admitted to Helmut Marko and Christian Horner, who are two Red Bull execs, Christian Horner being the boss, that this was true. He basically admitted, or whatever. People are saying that he admitted to that. And Horner, I also read on Twitter today that he said previously, just before obviously this weekend and everything, that Monaco is not one that sits well with Max, and he was upset about things that happened and yada yada yada. So, one other quote, someone reputable in the racing world, he actually follows Five City on Twitter. I wrote Tim, but it's Tom Colonel. Nice. Yeah, he said, "I know Monaco was a sensitive point for Max where Checo deliberately crashed the car to the wall and got full points as a result. This was Max's payback." Again, whether it's really true or not, whether Checo deliberately crashed the car into the wall on that turn, we'll never know. Man, I would love to know, though.
So, yeah, I guess we'll never know really what happened, like with a lot of things, but
yeah,
that's probably...
I'd love to be a fly on the wall.
Probably what we're looking at. And
Exactly.
Max then quickly said, I'll help him out in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever. But.
Right. I mean... Right. Was this Max's payback? Does he consider them even in his head now? And is he over it? I don't know. Is that pretty petty? Yeah. I'm a Max fan. I'm not like throwing away my affiliation because of this. I think that would be stupid as well. I see a lot of people burning hats and cutting up shirts on Twitter and whatnot. I'm not doing that.
Well, it shows how competitive they are, right? I mean, that's what one thing,
For sure.
Definitely not right for him to do that, and it's kind of petty and babyish in my opinion.
Yeah.
For him as the declared world champion to hold a grudge about something that happened a couple races ago.
Right.
And it's like he should be helping out his teammate no matter what.
Definitely. Especially, Checo doing the things that he did. Defending Lewis or holding off Lewis in the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix for Max to win. I mean, just obviously that's the big thing that comes to mind.
But that's the whole thing. How many races was Checo? You could go back and look at the races that he's helped Max.
Oh yeah, a lot. That's why it's like it's got to be the biggest slap in the face in the world. But the thing is, right, it does show how competitive these guys are. And I was kind of going back and forth with some dude on Twitter, and that's kind of what I said. I said, a lot of people like to think that, this is a friendly industry and all these drivers are buddy and this and that. And yeah, sure, some of them are, but A lot of them aren't, and all of them care more about where they finish in the race than the relationship between them.
Yeah, definitely.
And 100%.
And the thing is, the thing that sits with me wrong too is that I think Max, and you may not agree, but I think Max does a lot of things that maybe he's the best driver in the best car, right? So I think he pushes his limit with a lot of things that he knows nothing's really going to happen to him. Nothing's really going to change. People might not like him, but does he really care? I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he does care. Maybe he doesn't. But I think when you're at the top of your game in the top car and you're the world's best driver, sometimes it gets to your head and you're just like, he's just like, fuck you. I can do whatever I want.
I mean,
that's kind of the attitude I see coming.
100%.
Especially from this.
I can't, say that is 100% untrue or anything because he basically told you that over team radio. You know what I mean?
Right.
That was extremely blunt of him to say. It's probably exactly how he feels in all reality. But what I was going to say is usually things that are said in the heat of the moment, traveling 200 miles an hour, aren't exactly how you mean it. You know what I mean? Like I said, this is probably is probably exactly
took his time
what he
and
meant.
Explained exactly what he wanted to explain.
Okay, but in the heat, I'm just saying, in the heat of the moment, if he is looking at it right now, do you think he would have done exactly the same thing? Maybe not. I don't know. In the heat of the moment, he made a bad choice. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure he did. But I think if he was sitting here calmly, he probably would have made the same choice. That's just my opinion.
No, right. And like I said, that's why I said he probably meant exactly that. But there's a lot of people who would say something differently after the situation when they're not in the car mad about having a bad race.
And I feel like he just doesn't, because literally, what are they going to do? Fire him? They're not doing that. I'm just saying.
Yeah, 100%.
It's definitely him, you wouldn't see another, a lower level driver doing that or whatever. Point anyone out. I mean, he's at the top of the game on the best team, and they're not going to fire him for that.
100%.
I mean,
No, 100%.
He knows that. He knows they're not going to fire him.
There's no way. I mean, right. That's the thing. His job security is nothing to worry about for sure. One quote I did want to throw in, I saw it on Twitter, but he tweeted it. Mika Häkkinen, so he was a F1 legend. I believe he was a world champion as well. He said the following: the team always comes first, and if you have an agreement about how you and your teammate are going to work together, it is best to keep that. So I don't really know what to make of that, to be honest, because he says the team always comes first, right? Max obviously should have put the team first here. But he also said if you have an agreement about how you and your teammate are going to work together with the team, it's best to keep that. Did Red Bull behind closed doors with Max and Checo say, we're not going to ask you to give a place back to Checo ever, and then they do it over team radio? I don't know. That's something I wanted to throw in at the end of this conversation. Is that if that was the case, right? If this was predetermined, like Max said, he said, I told you before. He said, I already told you guys last time to not ask me this again. Basically, he said, are we clear about that? He said, I've already given my reasons, blah, blah, blah. And if they told him, we're not going to ask you to do that, and then all of a sudden he's driving and they say, hey, give the place back to Checo. Like, I'm not saying that he was in the right at all, but it definitely would throw him off guard and make him mad.
For sure.
Make him mad, for sure.
Yep.
Okay. Take a deep breath.
But let's talk about, if you're done, we're not done talking about that, but I was going to say, on the other hand, Mercedes had some good team play.
Yeah, man. So,
I mean, it was kind of evident at the end that Lewis wasn't catching George anyway.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think he was trying at first, but he was worried about Sainz too. Yeah. As soon as Sainz passed, who was in fourth?
Oh, shoot.
I forgot, but I know when they came back on the track, Lewis was complaining a little bit that Sainz was going to be on better, new tires, and was afraid that, he was going to get caught by Sainz.
Right.
Which didn't really come true, but I think that, he was worried about that. But once the race And Mercedes didn't have any soft tires left, right?
Yeah. They didn't.
So they could not even counter that pit stop with their own pit stop. So
yeah, they couldn't. Right. I remember at one point George was in first, Lewis was in second, obviously, and George asked the team, like, he said basically, are we preserving the 1-2 or are we racing? And they did say we're racing, at one point.
Oh, they did? Okay, yeah.
No, this was earlier though, for sure. Okay. This was definitely earlier. But like you said, I mean, Lewis definitely could have done something, outlandish to try to overtake Russell and totally screw the race up for both of them.
And I thought in the last 3 to 4 laps, I was really watching the time that he was behind him, and he was not really closing in on that 1 second mark to get the DRS.
Right.
And I thought maybe he just wasn't I don't know. I don't know what the thing is, but I think he was holding back a little bit, it seemed like.
I wouldn't doubt it in all reality. I mean, Lewis, so I also saw, not to keep bringing up things I saw on Twitter, but I saw an old clip of when Lewis and Valtteri did this exact thing, where Valtteri was in front. He couldn't overtake whoever was in front of him. They let Lewis try. Lewis couldn't do it, and they switched back right before the checkered flag. And I think the caption was like, doesn't seem like a hard concept or something like that, or this seemed pretty simple. But yeah, I mean, Lewis has done that in the past. If you ask anybody, they're going to say Lewis is the more inclined driver to do something like that. And yeah, they displayed their sportsmanship on the Mercedes side, definitely. For sure.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. We don't know if that was the case either, and maybe he just couldn't catch him, but he ended up he ended up pulling off the gas a little bit because he was at 1.1, under 1.1 at one point, and then he was the last couple laps 1.7, 1.8,
Yeah.
So
definitely pulling away a little bit, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, just building off a little bit, like you said, though, definitely good to see Lewis and George are working well together. I feel like I said, like I keep saying, I'm a Max Verstappen fan, I'm a Red Bull fan, but I'm just a fan of Formula One as well. So I like seeing like good things happen. I feel like I don't know, even if it was George, like if I had to pick one driver in the whole grid that I didn't like, it'd be George Russell for sure. But even him, like getting his first win and all this, and Mercedes having this horrible year with a horrible car, and then finally getting up to pace and executing on a weekend. It was good to see. I can't say it wasn't. You know what I mean? It was definitely good to see.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it would have been nice if Lewis got a win, but maybe he gets that this week. Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, get a little revenge from last year, maybe. I don't know. But keeping on Lewis, if that's all you got on the
yeah.
Okay. Keeping on Lewis though. So I know we touched on it a little bit earlier, but Lewis and Max were racing, so that means they crashed. It was on lap 7 after the restart. After Magnussen and Ricciardo had an incident. We'll get to that after this, but it was after the restart on lap 7, going into, I believe it was turn 2. Like you've seen the videos, you've seen the pictures. I'll throw them up. This was actually almost identical to what happened to Max and Ocon a few years back. That actually started a fight in the paddock after, or not a fight, but like Max pushed him.
Not a NASCAR fight?
No, not a NASCAR fight. It was very much a Formula One fight. It was very much a Formula One fight. Like Max pushed him, Ocon ran away, kind of like this. Yeah, I know. It was real bitchy by Ocon, to be honest. Yeah.
Oh my God, he pushed me.
And to be honest, like you're so right in saying like the oh my God, like because they still show that highlight all the time. Like it was like one of the biggest things in NASCAR.
Guys are throwing
punches and they don't whatever. It's
throwing punches thing, through windows.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean to touch on the incident a little bit, I don't know. We've been very candid. We're not. We haven't been watching this our whole lives or anything, so we don't have the best perspective on what is a racing incident, what isn't. Who has the corner, who has the whatever, you know what I mean? But in my opinion, it's hard to give either driver full or even the majority blame for this crash. I mean, yeah, Lewis didn't leave him a lot of room, and yeah, Max went for a overtake that maybe wasn't there, was there, I don't know. But it seemed kind of harsh to automatically give Max a 5-second penalty. I thought it could have been a racing incident.
Yeah, at first glance at the replay, when they showed the replay, they didn't show the whole, they showed them coming around the turn, and it looked like Lewis maybe tried to push him off.
Yeah.
But then later in the race, they showed the full angle of them coming through the turn first and then coming around to the turn.
Through turn 1 into turn 2, right?
Yeah, and then I didn't, if you watch that replay of the angle, it didn't look like Lewis got off his line that much anyway, or at all. I don't know. And I don't know. Like you said, I think they should have chalked that up to a racing incident, to be honest. Because there wasn't much from either. I mean, Max maybe had room, maybe didn't have room, but I don't know. I think it was just a racing incident. I don't think either of them was really at fault there. When I saw the better replay of it, I didn't really think there was much to complain about there.
And of course, after the race, like Max is just making things worse for himself, and he's like, "Yeah, immediately I knew that when I was coming up to Lewis, he wasn't going to give me the room, so I just went for it anyway. I knew we were going to crash." And it's like, dude, why are you saying that? I know what he means by that, but he's just telling everybody that like from what everyone's going to take that as I knew I was going to crash, so I just did it anyway. You know what I mean? Like, I know what he means is, I knew Lewis wasn't going to give me the room, or like he wasn't saying that he deliberately crashed into Lewis, but he just did not make things better for himself at all.
Yeah, they clearly don't like each other. I mean, that's just they're civil, but the way I view this is that every time that they get a chance, they're taking a subtle jab at each other.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And the thing is, like, going back to kind of my thing about, like, it's not a friendly industry at all. Like, I don't think yes, everybody on Twitter loves to, like, post pictures of, like, Pierre Gasly and, like, Carlos Sainz hanging out together. And, like, yeah, they do that, right? But, like, in all reality, when it comes down to who's finishing where, they would never care to give a place up. You know what I mean? They would never care about the relationship more than their seat for next year. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's the thing. This is a multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar industry, and these guys are the highest-paid drivers in the world, and it's an ego thing for them to reach this level, and they want to stay there.
I mean, there's not many other disciplines in anything that you can do that there is a pinnacle top 20 people. You know what I mean? And there's a standard you can get at. Even like the NFL, Major League Baseball, NHL, like there's 1,000 guys in the league. You know what I mean? This is 20 drivers in the world. You know what I mean? And
this is the pro level of driving, which is only 20 drivers.
Right.
It's the NFL. If the NFL only had 20 guys.
Right. Yeah. It's just, it's incredibly easy for people to get booted out of Formula One. You know what I mean? This is a performance-based industry. You know what I mean? If you finish fourth and not third, and they were expecting you to finish third, and you lose your seat, who knows what happens to your career? I'm just saying each driver on the grid and each driver trying to get into Formula One cares way more about how they place than what any other driver thinks of them. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. But it's like any sport. If you're, you see guys from the NBA and all the pro teams, they hang out with each other too.
Oh yeah.
Once they get on the court or on the field or on the ice,
right?
They're playing to win, no matter who it is.
For sure. And that's the beautiful thing about sports in general is you can kind of separate it. It's a game between this and that. It's a little different when it comes to racing when you could kill the other guy. You know what I mean? If you do something stupid.
Well, sure. There's got to be that respect there for them.
For sure.
For themselves.
I'd say it's probably more like closer to fighting. UFC maybe even.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe.
It's a good comparison though for sure. But yeah, I don't have much more on the Lewis Max incident. I don't want to speak too much on the technical side.
You know what I think it's more like? I think it's more like hockey.
Yeah.
Because if you look at two drivers and they're both going around the turn, they both know that one false move is going to get them, could get them seriously injured or wreck the car or whatever. Yeah. It's the same in hockey. So, there's always that respect for hitting a guy from behind or hitting. They always have respect for the other player because that's their career.
100%.
It's their career. If they end someone else's career, that's going to be, something they're going to have to live with forever.
Forever. Yeah.
And there's always that little bit of respect there.
Definitely.
But there's always also that player that doesn't adhere to that respect sometimes. And that's
for sure.
There's guys in the league that take it a little bit too far and they're considered dirty, and that's just the way it happens.
Yeah. And whatever. This whole thing, it was probably Max's darkest weekend in Formula One. You know what I mean? Just throughout everything that happened, the internally at Red Bull, the crash with Lewis.
Maybe he's bored. He's got it all wrapped up. He's got to do something.
Dude, it's like, I don't know, man. It really, I enjoyed this weekend probably more than almost any other weekend this year as far as racing goes, but it really threw me for a loop as far as like, wow. Like I really did not expect Max to do any of this.
Yeah. Well, you never expect someone to, purposely not work with their team.
Yeah.
Basically.
And have it broadcasted right on the broadcast. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, that's another crazy thing about these team radios is it's internal talk between the team and they're broadcasting it right on the air, which is
But that's part of it too. That's what's unique about F1 also is that, they're a team, but they're also both racing.
Right.
And it's not like a team where you're on the same football team and you're on the same team and the guy you're playing against other.
Right.
You're playing against other guys, but you're also playing against your teammate.
Right.
In the same sport.
Yeah, I mean, when your team wins, the teammates don't exactly win the same thing. You know what I mean? One wins first, one wins second. Or whatever. I'm just
one
saying,
wins first, one comes in 15th. The fit guy comes in 15th and isn't exactly happy.
Exactly. No, I know. He's not at all.
Like, yay, you won, but I came in 15th.
You won, but I couldn't give two shits. Yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah, I don't have much else on the Max and Lewis thing. I think I started off the last segment saying that, but I don't have anything else.
No, I don't either.
Okay.
I don't either.
Moving on, there were some other incidences. Leclerc and Norris got together. I don't know what lap it was, but it was in the middle of the race. The real story here was that Leclerc had an amazing comeback, finishing fourth after basically from what we thought.
We thought he was out.
We didn't fucking realize, dude. We
didn't realize he was still in the race.
We were like, wait.
Is
Leclerc?
Leclerc's
We were
10?
like, what? We were like, what? Yeah, that was awesome. That was definitely awesome. I love when like a driver like Leclerc, who's on a team who should be, in the top 6, top 4, has their race totally screwed up and then just puts their head down the whole race and is overtaken, weaving through Alfa Romeos and Williams and Astons to get back up to the top. I like that a lot. I like how a driver can just put his head down, not really be talked about on the commentary at all. You know what I mean? And then just, we're American. It's commentary.
Just trying to fit in.
But yeah, I don't know. I think it's cool. I think it was really cool to see that. We didn't even think he was fucking racing at one point, so good for him.
Yeah, it was good.
I didn't really, like I said, I don't have too much to say about their incident either. It just kind of looked like they got wheel to wheel, maybe.
What did he say about Lando? He flipped him off, right?
Yeah, so, oh my God, I totally forgot about this.
I saw you tweeted.
There's literally a picture, I'll throw it up, and Leclerc's just flipping him off outside the car. Yeah. But he also said, like as he was crashing, they played the team radio, and he's like, dick. He's like, what a dick. He's like,
yeah, what a dick.
Yeah. But I don't know. Like I said, it's the heat of the moment. There was a picture of them like hugging after the race or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. There's a couple other funny ones too. Like, was that in qualifying when Stroll basically took Vettel off the track?
Oh, it was the sprint race. Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
If you see, we can go to it right. No. We can go to it right now, but I just have written down Stroll as an idiot. And yeah, let's get into it right now because he literally did this. So to give a little perspective, when you're on a straight, right, you need to drive straight. You can't weave. You can't do anything unless you're overtaking. And what Stroll did was horrible. He, in back-to-back races, he did it to Alonso where he popped his car up and then did it to Vettel where he's about to be overtaken, and then he moves to the left. You know what I mean? And ended up causing contact with Alonso and literally pushed Vettel right onto the grass. I mean, Vettel had the all-time radio message just saying, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
classic Vettel, all he says is, okay.
Okay. Oh, okay. I mean, dude, yeah, Stroll is definitely not making a good name for himself right now inside the paddock. And just touching on the Alonso incident last week, 2 weeks ago now, last race, they're going to be teammates next year too. And that definitely was not like well received by Alonso at all. So that'll be an interesting dynamic in 2023.
Yeah, for sure.
So one thing I did want to touch on before we end this thing out was Kevin Magnussen and Daniel Ricciardo. So I want to say it was the first lap of the race. Yes, it was the first lap of the race. Daniel was behind Kevin and just kind of ended up touching his like the front wing, ended up just tapping K-Mag's car in front.
Yeah.
Totally spun K-Mag out. Spun Daniel out too, and they ended up colliding again.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah. So.
Well, he spun him. Yeah. So, right. Madison spun backwards and then went back into Ricciardo also.
I know. When we first saw it and we saw them hit again, we were like, "Oh, Magnussen probably was like, fuck you,"
yeah.
just like.
I thought he turned back into him, but he was literally out of control going backwards.
Oh no, yeah, he like got blasted backwards. Yeah, but no, that was man. I wish that this kind of could have turned into a points finish for Magnussen. I mean, he got a point in the sprint race, which is cool. So the top 8 positions get a point in the sprint race. He finished 8th, so we got 1 point. But it would have been cool to see this turn into a top 10 finish for Magnussen.
Yeah.
Unlikely. He started 8th on the grid. There's faster cars for sure, but it could have been. It could have turned into a really nice weekend for Magnussen for sure.
Yeah. Well, it was a nice weekend for him, really.
I was gonna say, yeah. That definitely was worded wrong on my end.
Well, I'm just saying it was obviously disappointing for him to crash, but
yeah, I think they had their win this weekend. In getting the pole for sure.
It would have been nice for him to, do better in the race, but
we definitely have to touch on really quick all of the Haas sandwich memes that were going on. How Magnussen qualified first and Schumacher qualified 20th. So I think. What was it? McLaren had a great post where it was like Lando's head, and then it was like Magnussen on one side, and everyone else squished in, and then Schumacher, and it looked like a sandwich. I don't know, it was funny. But that's
the Haas sandwich.
It's got to be demoralizing for Schumacher, right? For Mick.
Yeah.
Qualifying last when you see your teammate qualify first. Hey, one thing I wanted to say about Mick quick too is in his radio message after the race to his engineer. So it hasn't been confirmed what's going on with that seat with Haas yet next year. But in his radio message to his race engineer, he basically said, like, let's do it one last time next week or whatever. Basically, like,
oh, really?
Like he was, alluding to the fact that he's going to be gone. Just wanted to touch on that too.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? But like you said, it's even on one of the worst teams, you have to be a good driver, and he's clearly not keeping up with the pack, I think.
Yeah, and he's had a lot of incidences where he's crashed a car and costing a team millions and millions of dollars that doesn't have it. You know what I mean? Haas just announced that next year they will have enough money to reach the cost cap. not
the floor, you mean? Or the
like to reach the cap. To reach the most amount you can spend.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Like they couldn't even, like Red Bull and Mercedes and whatever, they were the whole cost cap controversy about Red Bull overspending. Right. Haas couldn't even spend like 80% of the money. Like they didn't even have it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So whatever. Getting back to KMAG, Danny Rick. Sad to see, honestly. I like both the drivers. I know Daniel didn't want to crash. He didn't mean to. You know what I mean? He didn't do anything like that. So you got to feel for him a little bit too. He's had a rough season. It's been it's rumored that he's going to sign as a reserve for Red Bull next year. We'll see what happens. But it's looking like he's going to have a reserve spot in Formula One. So he'll still be around. He'll be around for sure. And then hopefully he can make his way back onto a team. But
yeah. He's a great guy, but all good things come to an end too. And these guys, he's had a long career, and
that's true. And just going back to, sorry, not to cut him.
I'm just saying he's had a good career, so we shouldn't feel bad for him. He's been around a long time.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And, going back to this being a performance-based industry, you know what I mean? And it's legitimately like, if you don't perform this year or maybe next year, you're gone. You know what I mean? Like, they don't give you time to really feel it out or get your bearings. It's you come in and perform, or we're going to find someone else who will.
Well, and then you've got guys that come in and drive the practice sessions.
Right.
Like De Vries came in and he looked amazing. I mean, he drove, that one race that he had. He was awesome.
Got himself a seat for next year.
Awesome.
You know what I mean? So really, I was going to say it's possible for people to come in and be really good. Max, Charles, De Vries, anybody like that. But it's also possible for you to switch to another team. You don't like their car, whatever. They're not building it around you per se. It's not fit for your driving style, and you got to reinvent the wheel. So it's a lot to unpack with Daniel Ricciardo too. We can do 18 different episodes on him. But yeah, he'll be around. He'll be around. I don't have too much more besides a little recap, wrap up type of thing. But geez. I hate even talking about it because I like Red Bull. I like Max so much, but really, this is such a shock to me, to the whole F1 world, that everything that happened, and like I said, we don't have to go into any more details, but I'm sure we will hear more about it in the coming week and weeks after the season ends, and what's the relationship going to be like for next year with Max and Checo. They're probably going to move on. Everything's going to be fine.
Maybe the Netflix show will uncover something.
Maybe. I guarantee you they were watering at the mouth when this happened. They were running over
out of nothing all the time, or nothing out of
something out of nothing. And this was something, so hopefully they'll make.
This was actually something.
This was actually something, yeah. Yeah, I know. I mean, it's just crazy. But I don't know. Shows how competitive people are in this sport. Shows how, I guess, ruthless Max is.
Yeah, he is, and you never want to. I mean, I don't know. As a person, you never want to come across as being an asshole. But that's exactly what he did. Yeah. To people that don't know the story. I mean, that's the whole 100%. Thing too. You don't know the story. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe there's not. But still, you never want to come across as, saying nothing is better than saying something. In that, saying what he said anyway. In that incident.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack, and a lot of people probably won't agree with some of the things I said about Max or whatever, but I'm not going to throw in the towel. I think he's whatever. This doesn't make me not want to be a fan of him, because I think there's a lot of other circumstances. You know what I mean? It definitely. I can't say I don't think different though of him.
Yeah, who knows? I kind of thought he was a dick in real life anyway, but I don't know for sure. I'm just saying. I mean, based on his attitude, a lot of times I feel like he's just kind of a dick. But like I said, he's competitive, and he obviously those hot mic moments that he has. I mean, he just it's just he doesn't hold back at all.
No, and you can't expect everybody to sugarcoat things and whatever. Maybe he was way meaner than he needed to be, and this and that, and he's never been Formula One's nice guy. So I it is shocking though because it's different talking shit about Lewis than talking shit about your teammate. You know what I mean? For sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. For sure.
Or doing something.
Yeah, you're supposed to have
compromises Lewis, and doing something
loyalty,
that compromises your teammate. Yeah.
You're supposed to show some
loyalty.
Loyalty to your teammate,
especially someone who helped you win.
That is not at all what he did. But well, like I said, no one knows the real story, and I think there's a lot of things that come out in any sport and any incident that no one knows the real story. So,
sure.
I mean, we can judge all we want, but we're not.
Yeah. No, 100%.
We don't know what really is going on. So,
100%. But yeah, that's all I got. Brazil GP race review. It was a good one. I wish we could race here every week.
Great track, great race.
Yeah, a lot of excitement, a lot of drama. This is kind of what we watched Formula One for in all reality. So, there's some boring races, but this one was not one of them. That's for sure. So,
yeah, absolutely.
That was great. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. So our logo's still behind us. New setup. Hope you enjoy it. Went off one time. It's cool. But yeah, we haven't, like I said in the beginning, we haven't posted a lot of YouTube videos in the past week or two, but we've been moving. We just got all our shit in here, so we'll be ripping them out this week for sure.
Yep. Sounds good.
Cool. Really appreciate it. See you next time.
Later.